Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up, smoke. I dragged the guy out, his skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out and I helped him out to the ambulance.
Kenneth Brian Johannemann was born on January 3, 1965, to Wilhelmina and Robert Johannemann of Pawleys Island, South Carolina. In 1985, Johannemann became a father at age 20 to a son named Vincent. In 1993, he married Michelle Lagno in Staten Island, New York. In 2001, Johannemann worked as a custodian for a company called ABM Industries. He was assigned to clean bathrooms on floors 72 to 105 of the World Trade Center North Tower. On the morning of September 11, 2001, Kenneth Johannemann was a few minutes late for the start of his 8 a.m. shift.
I was in B Tower. A Tower.
What floor were you on?
B1.
What floor?
The first one.
What happened? Tell me.
When a big explosion happened, some guy came out, his skin was all off. I helped him out. This is him all over. There's people jumping out of windows. I've seen at least 14 people jumping out of windows. It's horrific. I can't believe this is happening.
Anything else that you saw? Were you there for the second hit by the plane?
After, about 10 minutes later, the second building went off.
Did you see it?
Yes, I saw it. It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere. Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement. Came down. All of a sudden, the elevator blew up. Smoke. I dragged the guy out. His skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out and I helped him out to the ambulance.
What happened was I was down in the basement. All of a sudden, we heard a loud bang. And the elevator door blew open. Some guy was burnt up. So I dragged him out. His skin was all hanging off. So I dragged him out and I pulled him out of the parking lot. This was what was left on it.
I was in the basement of the elevator. All of a sudden it blew up. We heard a crash. The elevator opened up. The guy came out burning. I grabbed him. His skin was falling off. I dragged him out and I pulled him out of the parking lot and gave him to EMS. Everybody else was just going all crazy and nuts. People are jumping out. People flailing, still alive, still jumping out. That's what I saw.
Johannemann was one of several witnesses who described explosions near the basement of the World Trade Center that morning.
I was a janitor. Like I said, on that day, there was an explosion on the basement, and this is prior to the building got hit by the plane. And then the plane hit, and then there was a series of explosions afterwards.
About like a good 15 people, like some coworkers, some people who were just down there in the B1 level on the basement floor. And it was just like, hysteria, just like, like smoke and everybody like screaming and, it was crazy. So we were like trying to figure out what was going on. When that happened, then another explosion happened.
I got on the elevator, and the freight elevator, and I heard the first explosion, and the elevator blew up, the doors blew up, and it dropped, and I was lucky that the elevator got caught in between two floors.
Which floors?
The B levels, the basement levels,
right,
where all the mechanics are.
We stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. Then we get to the lobby, it was this big explosion.
We was in the lobby and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like?
Horrible. The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Is that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was
Yeah, definitely a secondary explosion. Because we was inside waiting to go upstairs, and on the way upstairs, the whole fucking plane blew.
I think a bomb went off in the lobby first, then a plane hit the building.
The bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds then the first plane hit.
This testimony would become controversial in that it contradicted the prevailing theory that the buildings collapsed due to fire from plane crashes and not from explosives. Curiously, in a written interview with People magazine published on September 24, 2001, Johannemann is quoted as saying he was on the 30th floor when he witnessed the explosions from the elevator. This is the only one of his many interviews on video and in print that mentions being on the 30th floor instead of the basement. The rest of the story quoted by People magazine is the exact same as Johannamann's other interviews. Oddly, the story goes straight from grabbing an injured man on the 30th floor to bringing him outside, without any mention of descending 30 flights of stairs. Was Kenneth Johannemann misquoted in the People magazine interview? Was he pressured to change his story? Why is that the only published interview of Johannemann that mentions the 30th floor? In an article written a year later, in September 2002, Johannemann is quoted by The Times as saying he was in the basement when the explosion happened, consistent with his previous interviews. In that same article, Johannemann told The Times he had been separated from the mother of his son and was struggling with alcohol abuse. Johannemann mentioned he'd met a new girlfriend on New Year's Eve, who he described as a good influence in his life. He had been unemployed and looking for work, and was facing the threat of eviction in the near future. This would be the last media interview of Kenneth Johannemann's life. In August 2008, Johannemann was again facing eviction from another apartment on Rome Avenue in Staten Island. Although he had recently found a job as a janitor at a museum in Manhattan, he had fallen 2 months behind on his rent. His landlord, Anthony Malazzi, told him he had until 5 p.m. on August 31st to vacate the apartment. On the day of the deadline, Malazzi's son heard a popping sound from Johannemann's apartment. When Anthony Malazzi entered the apartment that evening, he found Johannemann's body, dead of an apparent gunshot wound. Next to Johannemann was a note from President Bush commending him for his heroism and a suicide note. The suicide note stated the reason he killed himself was because he was getting evicted and couldn't handle being homeless. On a second page, Johannemann listed several people to contact about his death. One of those people was William Rodriguez, another janitor who had witnessed explosions in the basement of the World Trade Center on the morning of 9/11. A service was held for Kenneth Johannemann 4 days later at Doriso Funeral Home in Brooklyn, New York. On September 4th, the news of Johannemann's death was published in the New York Daily News, featuring statements from 2 of his cousins and his landlord. No other news outlets reported on his death, and the New York Daily News provides very little detail about what happened. There's no information about evidence recovered at the scene, no official autopsy results, and no official statements from the NYPD. Johannemann's cousins, Gerald and Joseph Maya, both told the New York Daily News that they had offered him a place to stay so he would not be left homeless. They said Johannemann declined their offers. In 2012, an ABC affiliate network in South Carolina picked up the story, interviewing Johannemann's sister and his brother-in-law. No new details about his death were revealed in this article. Johannemann's brother-in-law Raymond told the reporter he believed survivor's guilt may have led Johannemann to commit suicide.
I was late for work, and that's the only thing that saved me. That's why I wasn't there up on those floors. My routine was from the 72nd to the 105th floor. I thank God that I'm still here, because if I wasn't late that day, I would have been up where the first plane hit.
While this explanation is plausible, there are many who believe Johannemann's death may not have been a suicide. This concern arises because Johannemann is one of many 9/11 witnesses who died young in mysterious circumstances. The common link among these witnesses was that their accounts contradicted the official conclusions of the 9/11 Commission report. Some have commented that the handwriting of Kenneth Johannemann's suicide note is unusual, alternating between all capital letters and all lowercase in a haphazard way. Because Johannemann's death was reported as a suicide in the media 5 days after his death, it is safe to say that a forensic handwriting analysis was probably not completed on the suicide note. As Kenneth Johannemann was not a well-known public figure, these details were never made public by the NYPD. Others have questioned why Johannemann would take his own life despite having a job, a loving girlfriend, and multiple other options for places to live. Was Kenneth Johannemann a tragic victim of survivor's guilt? Was he murdered to silence his eyewitness account of explosions in the basement of the World Trade Center? Or to send a message to other witnesses to keep quiet? What do you think? Read more in the links in the description, and please leave your thoughts in the comments.